Welcome into the official Jets podcast.
Dangling a steak in front of a lion and you ain't got no cage in between you. He gonna get to that steak.
So let's go inside the matchup.
A motivated Aaron Rodgers is a dangerous Aaron Rodgers.
Game day and every day, score a jewelry touchdown with Kendra Scott. Shop fashion and fine jewelry fit for another winning season at your local store or at kendrascott.com. Shine bright, do good with Kendra Scott. Bart, let's start right here. Are you a fan of the throwbacks?
Well, Mitchell and Ness style, absolutely. Not in there before.
How about Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams throwing it back?
Well, I tell you what, that's an impressive throwback. I am a fan of that one, and I think it showed itself apparent yesterday. We talked about to the tune of almost 198 yards. Could have been for 3 touchdowns, but he did the smart thing by getting down and trying to eat up the clock, understanding that you don't want to score too early, because you score too early, you can put that defense in a tough spot.
What did you make of that late game situation? Because Davante said after the game he didn't know what he wanted to do there. He has that great run after the catch. He's inside the 5, and then he kind of leaped to the 1.
Well, when you think about it, the only chance that the Jaguars had was for the opportunity to take it into overtime. Conventional thinking would say, okay, you go there, you take 3 knees, and then you force them to take all their timeouts, and you leave them with 15 to 20 seconds, 30 seconds at the most, and you kick a field goal, and you say you have no timeouts. You hope that you kick the kickoff out of bounds, and, they start on the 30. Even if they throw a Hail Mary, they don't have any timeouts. They can't get back there to spike the ball. So, that's conventional thinking. But, the Jets thinking, and the fact that last time we played in Miami, our kicker kicked the ball out of bounds, or, he kicked the ball and had by the sideline, had a huge return. So it's one of those things where, like, you kind of stuck. Like, do you go with conventional thinking, or do you feel like, hey, I got the feel of this team? I mean, I think it was good that the defense was able to step up, but I think that, they made it too interesting. It shouldn't have been that interesting. Even if you would have took two knees and then scored after the 2 knees after they used their timeouts, it looked like they were going to allow you to score. That's why they moved out the way. But that's all the ways those little funny situational football that comes up. They got the victory, and they took the victory out of their jaws of defeat. However you say that, because before the pass to Davante Adams to score, it was looking real bleak.
So how unique is that, those kind of stats, that combination, 9 catches, 9 receptions, 198 yards, and 2 touchdowns, all coming in the second half? They didn't have one connection in the first half. That's all over the course of 30 minutes. Then there was some crazy stat where I believe Davante Adams had about 130 yards in the final 4 minutes of regulation.
Well, they caught him in Tampa too, and I'll take my chances with Davante Adams, running up the middle of the football field in a foot race with a linebacker, and they caught him in the right coverage. I think the most impressive thing was when Aaron Rodgers smoked them out of their defense and saw that the safety to Davante's side was rotating to the middle of the field. And he knew that he had the one-on-one coverage, and they had to have it third down, and he was able to get the first down that way. Circus catch, keeping both of his feet down on the ground and being able to catch the ball. But I think, when you watch what happened yesterday, what's apparent is the fact that you need Davante Adams on this team next year to be able to take the coverage and the bullseye off of Garrett Wilson. And sometimes the bullseye is on Garrett Wilson, and he takes the coverage away, because when they rotated the safeties to that side, they actually were, going one-on-one with Davante Adams with Campbell, who's their best corner, a talented young player, but Davante Adams schooled him, but that's only because they had a threat of Garrett Wilson on the other side. So
it's so interesting. I'm sorry to jump in here, but it's so interesting, the point you just made, because early on in that game, I thought Garrett Wilson was going to be the one who finished with the 150 yards and maybe a couple touchdowns.
Well, they were keeping you guessing, right? Sometimes they decided to take their 2 second best and maybe safety and say, I'm going to take away Davante Adams and put Campbell on Garrett, and then they flip-flop. And that's what you want to do. You don't ever want to get in a steady dose of anything with a team because coordinators are too good and they can scheme up easy throws or they can make it, in their favor. And so you got to credit Jacksonville for what they attempted to do. It's just that Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams has done this so many times that they were able to have that nonverbal communication, slight gesture to him, and was able to make the adjustment. And, you like that. Sometimes you saw them on the same side, which really makes it difficult for them. Allen Lazard had a pivotal drop. DB made a good play, but the ball was where it needed to be. I hate to keep reiterating this, but I think with Fashanu playing at such a high level, we saw Aaron Rodgers have confidence in his blind side, and we see the attempts down the field step up because of the time that he was afforded by the offensive line.
Do you like that Rodgers came back to Davante for touchdown 100? Because Davante got the Jets inside the 10 there in the third quarter, and it looked like he had given them a lead, which was going to be the lead after the extra point, but it was ruled that he was out of bounds at the 1 yard line. So instead of having Braylon Allen going in from the one, those guys dial it up again.
Yeah, I mean, that's risky. I would have rather them just run the football in, but, he completed the ball. He knows his guy. He put it where he needed to get it at, and they've done that, like you said, 100 times. It's only, 4 other duels that have done that at that high level. And, what's impressive is the fact when you think about, Marvin Harris and Peyton Manning, when you think about Jerry Rice and Joe Montana, is that they did that with his whole career there. What time was missed when, Davante Adams decided to go to Las Vegas, if he was still there in Green Bay, what would that record look like if they had to stay with each other for the duration of their career?
Yeah, so they're at 80+, those guys. 100 career touchdowns, though, for Davante Adams. What was his most impressive catch of all? Was it the 3rd and 10 up the sideline?
Yeah, it was over the catch. It's not just that he made the catch, it's that he was able to keep his right foot down and be able to kind of go limp and keep his foot in and get both feet in. The catch is one thing within itself over, looking over your shoulder and tracking the ball, but the fact and the wherewithal to keep your feet down was, only few people can do that. And he's definitely one of them.
Okay, so what did you think about Rodgers getting it done on the ground? He was the Jets' leading rusher. You're not going to play every week where your 41-year-old quarterback is the leading rusher, but can you speak to the protection he got and also maybe, hey, listen, if there's a lot of green in front of me, I still can get down the field a little bit and then get down.
Well, I think that's just a testament to he's been healthy, and teams are taking for granted that they think they can play every coverage against him. You see this with Patrick Mahomes. Guys want to play cover 0, and Patrick Mahomes makes them pay. Well, Aaron Rodgers has never been the most athletic quarterback, but he's been far from the least athletic quarterback. He's not Peyton Manning or Tom Brady late in their career, or Drew Bledsoe. He's still a guy that can make you pay. He can still run a little bit. And I think he's getting more healthy because he's not taking the hits that he was taking, weeks before. When you think about, like I said, Fashanu solidifying that left side, it allows him to step up. The issue was that, Tyron was getting beat so fast that even when you got to a 5-step drop, it was that DN was bending a corner where, Fashanu was kind of guiding him past Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers steps up. And once you do that, you get past the quarterback depth. You have a natural lane to step up and step out. But then now you only have 3 people if you're a defender, and it's created a lot of space because you have 3 and they still have 4 to block your 3. And so there's natural gaps that just naturally opens up, and Aaron Rodgers exploited them, and guys were locked into their coverage so they couldn't come out of coverage. And it was good to see the old man, be able to see that he's still able to have some fun by pointing at Jacksonville when he got the first down, kind of mocking Mac Jones, who I think was, trying to do his greatest Trey Young impersonation, being the most irritating person in New York fans, lore, so to speak.
Look at you calling Rodgers old. Hey, so far this season, he's completed about 62.5% of his passes, 3,255 yards, 23 touchdowns at 8 interceptions. What do you make of his season as a whole right now, Aaron Rodgers?
It's tough because the winning hasn't been there. You talk about the opportunities it was to win games. But if you ask anybody, hey, a Jet quarterback threw for this many touchdown passes, this many yards, and only 8 interceptions, you would say, wow, that was a pretty productive season. The issue is that I have with him, the fact is, for some reason, they can't get this running game going. And whoever comes here and coaches this team next year, that has to be number one. It's whether Aaron Rodgers is here or not. But if Aaron Rodgers is here, you have to be able to run the football because it just creates more space for the old man. You know what I mean? You have to be able to run the football and with the talent that you have, there's no way that Aaron Rodgers should ever lead the team in rushing. You want to see more from Breece Hall. You know, even as a collective, even if it's an individual, you want to see them close to 120, 150 yards a game rushing the football to create that balance.
The official Jets podcast is presented by Kendra Scott, the jewelry company that's shining bright and doing good. Shop game day ready jewelry styles and so much more at kendrascott.com.
Isn't it a while when we're projecting Rodgers could throw for 4,000 yards this season? He's probably going to go over 30 touchdowns if you're asking me. And he's protected the football throughout his career, but we talked about this for a long time. If the Jets ever got that kind of play at the quarterback position, you would think they would easily have a spot in the postseason.
Yeah, unfortunately, it hasn't translated to wins, right? Because it's a difference in learning how to close, right? Because if you go back and let's just say they win half of the games that they've lost, you know, simply in the last minute, whether it's the field goal to Denver, whether it's the missed thrown pass in Minnesota, you know, you would have had opportunities to say, okay, we still have a legitimate shot. If they would have won 4 out of those 7 games that they lost, or, you know, what would their record be? They'd still be in the mix, right? That would be 8 wins. It would have them right there in playoff contention. The issue is that, you know, you can't – this team has a small margin for error. It hasn't been a dominant defense that we've been accustomed to. So when you talk about the traditional things that we used to say, hey, the team just needs this and look where they'll be, that's taken for granted that, you know, Greg DeLay was going to have a great productive year. He seems to have the yips like Tucker had this year. And sometimes that happens with great players. We saw that with Nick Folk when he was in Dallas and then when he went out and he continues still kicking to this day. You know what I mean? Sometimes they get the yips and there's nothing you can do about it. And you in the run game. So, like, if they can improve the run game and, you know, next year, if they can, I always feel like they should get somebody opposite of Quinnen. You know what I mean? And, you know, I love the kid from Michigan, Graham, and I think that'd be a great compliment because now you can run games on both sides and have effective players. And I also like to see them go to a 3-4. I've been saying that for years.
Yeah.
A guy like Graham and a guy like Quincy in the 4 eyes, impossible to block. So it solidifies that teams won't be able to run the football. You want to cover up Sherwood, who had another outstanding performance, and you want to cover up Quincy.
So I have a couple Netflix questions for you. Number one, are you going to watch Enigma? It is dropping this week. We are taping on Monday.
Sure. Enigma?
Yeah, that's Aaron Rodgers' documentary.
Ah, okay. This is a continuation of it. Yeah.
Are you going to watch?
I want to see what some other people watch. Yeah, I'm a clips person. But I don't watch stuff through. I want to watch the highlights. You know what I mean? But it'd be interesting to see what he went through and document. I know he hoped on the other side they were dropping this and hoping this was going to be in the midst of the Jets having a postseason run. But, you know, not all things work out. And, you know, I love to see what the process is of his thinking and, you know, some of the things that, you know, some people may think is quirky, you know, to see like kind of how he goes about his business and his life.
Yeah, he's a unique dude, a unique individual, very intelligent, and you got to give him credit for his work ethic because it's not easy coming back from an Achilles, I imagine. That's not an injury. I don't play professional sports, but that's not an injury that I've ever dealt with. And he could have easily walked away. Instead, he did a grueling rehab after 4 snaps going down against the Buffalo Bills, and now he's on the verge, Bart, of playing 17 games.
Yeah, man, it'd be important. And I think that'd be inspirational for a guy like Jermaine Johnson, who I'm sure is sitting in Aaron Rodgers' ear trying to figure some things out about how you come back, the mental space that it takes. And I'm excited about that as well. But, yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I'm sure it'd be the talk of talk radio. People will be talking about his version of time versus time, I guess. And should be interesting to see what happens.
So it's going to be a fascinating dynamic, right, for Rodgers to determine what he wants to do after the season, and the Jets, what they want to do as they look ahead.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I know we're about to start the general manager process, and you look at, you know, the coach's search will be shortly after that, I'm sure. And I'm sure that's all the things that's going to be in consideration. I'm sure they're going to talk to those candidates and see what their plans are, with Aaron, without Aaron, what they view, how they think about it, and then see if you can try and create some chemistry between the upper, the office, upper management and the field generals.
Okay, speaking of talented, one of my favorite shows growing up was the Jamie Foxx show on Netflix. Here, what had happened? Did you get a chance to see that?
I saw bits and pieces. It was kind of uncomfortable with me when he kept breaking down because you try and figure out where he was, and sometimes that's tough to see a strong man, reduced to tears and reflection. So I watched part of it, but I'm gonna come back and give it another chance. Hopefully, I can skip past the crying part and the emotional part because we can see ourselves in all of that. Strokes and stuff like that. That's real. But the fact that he's able to come back and his daughter's able to be there, her daughter was somebody that found him and was able to help him through his recovery is amazing.
Man,
resilient.
As far as the entertainer is concerned, not only is he's brilliant, but his depth is off the charts. The dude can do anything.
Yeah, he can. It was funny because he can go play the piano, he can do imitations, he can do comedians. I feel like some of the most talented people in the world. You think about all the comedians that we have and how they cross over different genres, how they can act, how they can sing, entertain. He can rap, like all that type of stuff. I think comedians are some of the most interesting people in the world.
All right, so we talked about the close of the game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sauce Gardner gets on the board with his first interception of the year. What could that possibly do for his confidence?
Well, his confidence had taken a hit. I think he gained a lot of that back when he played well against DK Metcalf. The Brian Thomas kid is just an exceptional player. But it just shows that they are able to operate in critical moments because they tried to get him. And, he thought it was a 7-8 switch. Depending on how you call 7-8 switch is different. It looked to me like a post, and they tried to run a real route to try and eat Sauce up, and they were trying to sneak somebody behind him, thinking that he would take the post and stay over the top. And he saw the whole picture, did his job, and was able to make a big play in front of his family, which meant a lot to him as he expressed in the postgame.
Yeah. Well, the Jets had 2 interceptions in all, and I know that seems like a modest number, but entering this game, Bart, they only had 2 interceptions throughout the course of the year. So that was one of the biggest things when you look back at the 2024 season in terms of efficiencies. The Jets just never had the takeaways, but perhaps this can help them over the next final 3 games, just seeing it happen.
Well, they're going to be tested, man, because they're going to go and they got to face some war daddies. I don't know what Miami has left. When you think about they had a tough loss. And so, they just, will they play Tua Tagovailoa? Will they put him at risk? But, the Rams and the Bills are fighting for, supremacy and trying to make sure that they can get the best seed that they can get. And, the Jets can do themselves a favor by being motivated to try and make sure that they can't get what they're looking for. But also, you look at the Rams. The Rams are fighting to try and win that division as Seattle lost yesterday. Who knows? Geno Smith suffered an injury. And, the Rams were injured at the beginning of the season, but their defense started to play a little stronger. So you're going to get everything that you can handle. You think about Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, one of the best in the business, but also, in my opinion, the best blocking tandem in all of football when you think about how committed they are to blocking in the run game.
All right, so do you want to see Sauce Gardner move with Puka Nacua?
Why? Cooper Kupp is just as dangerous.
Yeah.
So pick your poison. You know what I mean? It's not like oh, let me go get the good one and the other one's bad. In this one you can probably play left or right. Now Puka does a lot more of the running of the football, the jet sweeps and stuff like that. It's funny that Puka stands for fat and Samoan. You know what I mean? And he's every bit the part. Physical guy, and he loves to be effective in running, blocking in the run game, but also he's part of the run game, because he runs the ball and he's, a tremendous receiver. You saw him, do a David Tyree, instead of using his helmet, he pinned it against the defender's helmet.
How does McVay challenge you schematically, and where would you rank him amongst the play callers today in the National Football League?
He's right there. He's a guy that's going to continue to test your eye discipline, your communication skills, the shifts, motions. He'll shift or he'll motion, set, then shifts and motion again. And those are all things that forces, people to have to communicate. He's been doing this a long time, ever since Ty Gurley, being able to manipulate the pocket and manipulate, the eyes. And so you don't see what's really happening because there's so much for you to pay attention to. And all it takes is you to have bad eyes one time and it's a wrap.
Interesting matchup for the Jets offensive line, who you are very high on. You are Olu Fashanu's biggest fan, and the Jets have really held up well in pass protection. If you look over the course of the year, they've done a good job. Aaron Rodgers getting the ball out quick, but now we're seeing him take more shots down the field. No Aaron Donald with the Rams, but they do have some young dudes who get after up front.
Bro, they got two, Kobe Turner, you talk about Jared Verse and Fisk. They may be the most dominant line in the future coming up. I mean, they get after it. And you talk about Kobe Turner, what he was able to do a couple of weeks ago. It'd be a great test to see how John Simpson and Vera Tucker and Tippmann, who I think are playing at a high level, and Morgan Moses, the old Wally veteran. It'd be interesting because even though, they are good, they do get a lot of points put up on them, and they have some miscommunications, but they're getting better as we go.
What do you make this time of year, right around Christmas time, where the Rams are coming to the East Coast, this spot where it's going to be exceptionally cold on Sunday? That's what the forecast is calling for. Starting early against a Jets team that has not hit their expectations this year at 4-10, but is playing definitely better football, especially in the offensive side.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a test any given Sunday, right? You never know how a West Coast team is going to react coming to the East Coast with the time difference and things like that, and also the elements. So we'll see what they're made out of, and the Rams better get used to it in case they have to come over to Green Bay or if they have to go out to Philadelphia. They might as well get used to them. So I'm sure Sean McVay will use that as a mental exercise for his team to get ready in case they have to match up with outside on the East Coast in the elements.
And for the Jets, talk about playing spoiler. You got the Rams here this week, and then the following week you go to Buffalo, and the Bills hope to be in contention for that number 1 seed in the AFC. And that's a team you're going to contend with not only next year, but for a while. And Josh Allen could be the MVP of the National Football League.
Yeah, it's funny. Everybody's kind of pushing that. And it's like, I heard Dan Orlovsky is kind of prisoner of the moment, right? When you look at it, because last I checked, Lamar Jackson threw for 5 touchdown passes. He's at he leads in every metrics, yards passing. He's got more rushing yards. He's got, he completed 80% of his balls. And it's not the Raven talking to me, but how can a guy that's almost doubling himself from last year when he was unanimous MVP, that's to let you know it's kind of a popularity contest. Sometimes you can get bored and a guy being so dominant that he's really competing against what he did against himself. But even with that, he's even better. He's going to throw. He's going to throw for 4,000 yards. He's going to complete over 75% of his passes. I mean, he only had 5 incompletions yesterday. So I find that funny that he only has 2 less wins than Josh Allen, and he beat the brakes off Josh Allen when they were head to head. And so he's actually having to carry this Ravens team, I feel, more because his defense isn't the number 1 defense like it was last year. So he's having to win these type of games. And, maybe Lamar has something to say about it if he puts on a dominant performance against Pittsburgh this Saturday. But Josh Allen is definitely right there. Saquon is definitely right there. And it'd be interesting in this MVP race and to see if they want to see somebody else because, like you said, you can give Michael Jordan MVP every year. You can give Kobe, LeBron, certain guys that are just that dominant that sometimes Patrick Mahomes become victims of their own success.
Just your thoughts on the GM search for the Jets. We know that process is underway, and Chairman Woody Johnson has hired the 33rd team in support to help them out throughout this process. But Adam Schefter reported Sunday morning before the Jets played the Jaguars that the Jets intend to interview John Robinson and Louis Riddick. Those are just 2 early names here. We're going to hear more names as we progress.
Yeah, these are guys that are available, right? These are guys that aren't currently with teams. So you have to do your due diligence. You got to be a thorough search. You got candidates that have been, either general managers before or has been in management in future and has interviewed to be general managers. When you think about Louis Riddick, you have Robinson, and you think about him and what he was able to build with the Titans. But you also have to consider like the combinations, because the head coach and the general manager have to be aligned with each other. So if you bring in Robinson, what does that mean with as far as interviewing Mike Vrabel? So like these are all things that have to be considered. The 33rd team, I'm sure, has their lists and their due diligence, and they know maybe potentially what combinations work well together. And we have to see.
Do you think it's important as far as the order, or not necessarily in terms of getting a GM in place prior to head coach?
I mean, it depends on, like, we all know, like, Woody has a different structure than some, or maybe even most of other organizations. You have to make sure that you get the general manager. I feel that the general manager, is going to hire the coach, but the coach is going to have something to say about it. You people can talk about the general manager. I almost feel like the most powerful person in the building, traditionally, in my opinion, nowadays, is the head coach, right? And the general managers, we're seeing first-time general managers, paired with experienced coaches. And, and so when you ask that, one has experience, one don't, are they growing together? Or do you want to pair guys that have went together? I mean, it's a guy in the building right now that I'm a huge fan of, that I think he should get a legitimate shot at Phil Savage. You think about who he's responsible for. He's responsible for the development of Eric DaCosta. He's responsible for the development of Joe Ortiz. So he's always been one of the best talent evaluators. Ran the Senior Bowl. I think right now he's the assistant general manager. I think he should get a legitimate shot to be the general manager of the New York Jets, because he's been a very great executive and a great talent evaluator in this league for years and years.
Yeah, of course. Phil Savage, the interim general manager here with the New York Jets, and Jeff Ulbrich, the interim head coach. You got to feel for a guy like Brick. It's been a long time coming as the Jets snapped that 4-game losing streak, and they've suffered a lot of defeats. But you could really feel the emotion when he went inside the Jets locker room after finally getting another win against the Jaguars.
Yeah, I mean, because this signal progress, right? I mean, you've been right there on the cusp of victory, but you haven't been able to close out. And to be able to close out on his side of the ball, I think had to feel good for him, just so he can have a positive plane ride back. And you're preaching to the guys, keep playing hard, finish, and all that stuff, and be a professional. Now that the Jets are eliminated for playoff contention, and that's not easy to do, to motivate people to say, "Hey, man, like, come out here with the intensity as if this game is for the playoffs."
And he's given it every day, Bart, and he is a beloved figure inside this building.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's a guy that was given an opportunity, but it also was a tough situation, being that you have never been a head coach, and to get that opportunity on the fly and have to learn, all the roles of a head coach, doing the interviews and all the things that come with being a head coach, and then still trying to be elite at your job as a defensive coordinator was a tall task for anybody. And anybody, we're all envious of the fact that, that's a tough situation to be on. We recognize that.
You done with the holiday shopping?
No, not at all, man. I got a little bit more to do for the little one. Gigi's easy because she just gives you her list. Bryce is a kid that don't really care about anything. Like, you never know what he wants, so you just kind of got to figure out what you think he likes.
Get after it, bro.
Yeah, Brody.